back to his father. So here Reuben seeks to save Joseph from being killed. He suggested something that can just make him, can let him be alive, so that I think he doesn't live with them. In verse 23, so when Joseph came to his brother, they stripped him of his robe, the richly ornamented robe he was wearing, and they took him and threw him in the cistern. Now the cistern was empty, there was no water in it. So his brothers decided to throw him into the empty well, and they took that fancy robe that Jacob had made for him, and they destroyed it. In verse 25, as they sat down to eat their meal, they looked up and saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead. Their camels were loaded with spices, balm, and myrrh, and they were on their way to take them down to Egypt. So here the brothers agreed to sell Joseph to the slaves, and so they meet with one of the person who needed a slave, and they decided to sell Joseph. Judah said to his brother, "What will we gain if we kill our brother and cover up for his blood? Come, let's sell him to the Ishmaelites and not lay our hands on him. After all, he is our brother and our own flesh." His brothers agreed. So here Judas became guilty of killing his own brother, and he also proposed that Joseph should be sold as a slave. So when the Midianite merchants came by, his brothers pulled Joseph up out of the cistern and sold him for 20 shekels from the silver to the, or shekels of silver to the Ishmaelites who took him to Egypt. So here the Ishmaelites agreed to take Joseph, and they paid that money to his brother. So Joseph will no longer meet with his brother for now. In verse 29, when Reuben returned to the cistern and saw that Joseph was not there, he tore his cloth. He went back to his brothers and said, "The boy isn't there. Where can I return now?" In verse 29, we find that Reuben loved his brother, and he didn't want him to be killed. And when he found that idea he had proposed no longer worked, he was sad, and he asked his brother where Joseph was, and I don't know if they told them that he got the information. In verse 31, then they got Joseph's robe, slaughtered a goat, and dipped the robe in the blood. They took the ornamented robe back to their fathers and said, "We found this. Examine it to see whether it's your son's robe." So here, the brothers of Joseph had planned to deceive Jacob about the situation of Joseph. So they knew they'd sell Joseph to Ishmaelites. So they decided to slaughter a goat and dip his robe, Joseph's robe, into the blood and take it to their father so that they could believe Joseph might have been killed or eaten by a wild animal. He recognized, and in verse 3, he recognized and said, "It is my son's robe. Some ferocious animal have devoured him." Joseph was surely being torn into pieces. In verse 33, Jacob receives the information and he starts mourning Joseph. Then Jacob tore his clothes, put on sackcloth, and mourned for his son from days. All his sons and daughters came to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted.